My sense of social anxiety is that it's gotten worse during COVID. That's certainly what I hear from people. As we're working with this, that might be something to keep in mind that a lot of people have social anxiety. A lot of people had social anxiety before COVID. And I think for everybody, our nervous system's spent a period of time very isolated with staying at home, sheltering in place. And then we came back out into a world where we didn't know who might give us COVID. We can't tell by looking at somebody, it's airborne. It was very threatening to our nervous system. It sets up a condition of social anxiety and of anxiety generally in our body. To acknowledge that this is something that happens because of our nervous system, because of our past experiences, it's helpful to know that. Anytime we're afraid, we turn away. Maybe another time. Sometimes when we have a job we have to go to or things that we have to do, we find that we're able to go ahead and do that. If we have an option, social situations or things that we know that will be helpful, oftentimes they feel a bit more optional and we find we are avoiding them. Even though we want to do it, there's too much fear there. When I was thinking about how to work with this in an inquiry, I was really looking at the steps that it takes. So, one thing that really helps reduce any kind of fear or anxiety and helps to sharpen our neuroception as well is this building resilience. We have an ongoing mindfulness practice. We regulate, we notice when we're getting off kilter. There are a lot of resources that we can use for that now, including the daily practice that we do live. And there's practices like cyclic sighing, tapping on the forehead, putting the image in a frame, holding your own hands, looking around the room, the five senses practice, grounding. There's a lot of different practices that we can do on an ongoing basis that will give us a stronger base. When things come up, it's not going to be quite as alarming to our nervous system. The other practice that's really helpful is to become familiar with the energy and sensations in our body and what they mean and how to work with them. There's a lot of steps we can take to build resilience. Step 2, this more accurate neuroception is what we're going to work with today. I found these slow motion walkthroughs so powerful for a couple of reasons. One is our nervous system has a chance to kind of reveal what it is that we're worried about. It might be the look on someone's face. It might be a sound. It might be a familiar environment that we're in. In my own mind right now, as I'm doing the visual, I'm getting ready to leave home and meet with friends. I notice my stomach is in knots. So we can pause and we can look at the images and words. We can use our tools like tapping and tracing and grounding. And then we come to a place in our nervous system where it doesn't feel as threatening. Also, when we're doing this as a walkthrough ahead of time, we can work with the energy and sensations in our body. So we can use those, locate and describe the sensations. We can mine it for meaning. Why is this energy here? Oftentimes, the energy is here to protect us or to alert us. And the energy itself is what's pushing us away from doing whatever it is that we want to do. So we regulate, we come back to the next step, the next step, the next step. And there are things that we can do at each step. There are also things that we can do to give ourselves more resources before we go. So it might be some deep breathing on our way over there, or to look at the situation and kind of look and see, what is it? Okay, there's that person that I know is going to be there who always ignores me. It always feels horrible when they're there and I'm there too. I feel stupid. So we could work with some of the core deficiency beliefs as well. We can also look at it as an adult now. When we were a child and someone was socially ostracizing us or making fun of us, it was devastating. Now, as an adult, we can look at that and go, I actually don't respect that person. Why would I care so much about what they think about me? So we can become more accurate in that sense as well. What was challenging as a child doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be devastating as an adult. And then the other thing is we can visualize the more positive outcomes. Maybe there's somebody there who we always enjoy connecting with, but we're not going to think about that on our own. We're going to have to kind of bring that forward. Or maybe, we're going to take the chance and go over to somebody who also looks anxious and strike up a conversation. We can talk in longer sentences. We can do those things that we know are regulating. I noticed some people are very comfortable in social situations, and I would watch and see, well, what is it they do? And one thing is they always had a few questions. How do you know the host? What do you do for fun? Have you traveled this year? That's a little bit different now that COVID is around. But just things that, what are your hobbies, or how long have you lived here? And then as soon as they had two or three questions in the air, they would always find some kind of commonality. And then the conversation could go from there. So I thought that was a great way to reduce anxiety is to have some questions ready to start a conversation. It can feel very awkward when we're both standing there and like nobody knows what to say. And then on a practical level, we can see what it is in particular that makes us anxious. In a meeting or in a social or family situation, we might just make sure that we have our own transportation so that we're not trapped. If we want to get out of there, we have a way to do that. If we are feeling anxious about a party, we could call ahead to the host and ask them about what to expect. I've done that a certain amount with COVID, asking, will people be masking? Partly to determine my level of risk, but also, am I going to feel comfortable in that situation wearing a mask? This is how we're wired. We're wired for attachment and connection, and it feels really awful when we don't have that. Loneliness is a big issue, social isolation as well. So the step 3 is this direct experience of safe enough connection. We can do it online. We can do some kind of collective action, which is also a powerful antidote to fear, because instead of feeling powerless, we get together with people and make an impact. I have a great history with volunteering because it gives you a place and a job, and it's not so iffy. I volunteered for many social justice organizations, and oftentimes volunteers have a lot in common. One of the things we can do with this resilience and the walkthroughs and reducing the social anxiety is then we actually can take it online or in person and take the risk of sharing and connecting. Let's do the walkthrough. So we're looking at a situation, whatever comes to mind. It's best not to work with a 10 out of 10, just something that you feel uneasy about. Might be something that you're going to be doing soon, might be something from the past. And we start with being regulated. As you bring up what you're going to work with, then come back into noticing this is a visualization. We're not in any actual social interaction. I'm bringing up something that makes me feel a bit anxious. So one of the things we could do is notice our breath. Take a few deeper breaths, long, slow exhales, which helps to downregulate anxiety and fear. We could look around the room and just let our eyes communicate with our nervous system. We're not actually around other people right now. We're doing this visualization. We could hold our own hand. We could do those things that help us to stay present. So notice as you're thinking about this event, what it is that's the first moment when you start to feel anxious. Is it when you're leaving home? Is it when you're standing on the doorstep? Let's take an example of getting together with friends, although you could certainly do it with work or family or any other situation where you're going to be in. And notice what comes up. Look at images, words. I want to go to this new book club, or I want to meet with these friends at a restaurant. Notice the feelings in your body. And then let's look at the thoughts that are associated with those feelings. We'll come back to the feelings in a moment. What are the thoughts? I'm going to feel awkward. I'm going to sit outside the restaurant in the car and be afraid to go in. You could put those kinds of thoughts into words, like you're looking at it on a billboard, or you could maybe have an image of yourself in the car outside the restaurant. Whatever image or thoughts that you could put into words, just work with this for a little bit. So one of the ways we work with thoughts is we do tapping on the forehead. Bring your attention in to this moment in time. Keep your eyes open if you're doing this and it's starting to feel kind of intense. One of the other tools we use, put the image into a frame or the image of the words and put it on the other side of the room. Find a spot on the wall on the other side of the room. And notice that you could have the image and then a frame. And on the outside of the frame is empty space. You could take your eyes above the frame and then start to circle the empty space on the outside of the frame. Go around a couple of times each direction. And then look back at the image in the frame or the words. Notice your response to them now. It might be the same, it might have changed. Often it will diminish in intensity. You could do that again, bilateral movement of your eyes. You could also do focus shifting. You could look at the image and then, without moving your eyes, broaden your awareness to take in what else is on the wall, the color of the paint, other pictures, whatever it might be. And then bring your focus right into what's in the frame again and broaden it out. We're working with the thoughts that are surrounding this. Notice if you're holding your breath. If you are, let your breath move a bit. What are the other images that might be there at this step of the walkthrough? You could continue to work with thoughts, and then you could also come into your body. And what does it feel like right now in your body? Well, I have a tight knot of tension in my stomach, for instance, or I have an overall feeling of dread or heaviness. Notice what's in your body right now, the sensations and energies, and describe them like you would to a scientist. First, we need to know the location. Is it something that fills up your whole body? Is it something very like a tight fist in your gut? It's 3 or 4 inches around. Notice the edges. A lot of sensations get less intense as they move out from the center. Some sensations have a sharp drop off. Notice the edges of the sensation. And notice the space around the sensation. So that space might be, if it's a tight clench in your gut, it might be that you don't feel that in your chest. You don't feel it in your arms and legs. Or if you feel it more in your whole body or a larger space, notice the space around your body. Even if the energy kind of leaks out a little bit into the surrounding space, it doesn't go everywhere. It's not on the other side of the room. Notice the edges, notice the space around sensation. And if you have an image of the sensation, you could open your eyes, look at that image on the wall like we did before. You could do some tapping on your forehead. And now let's see, why is this sensation here? First of all, ask, is it here to hurt me? Even a painful or an intense sensation, we might read it as being here to hurt us. But when we really have a look, is that true? If it feels true, it's because there's some kind of thoughts associated with it. This somatic inquiry means we're sitting with our attention in the sensation or energy, and we're waiting to hear from it. Why are you here? And notice what comes up. It might be a flash of a memory of when you were a teenager and you went to a party and somebody made fun of you. Our brain stores all of the evidence of things that could go wrong. And as those images come up, we could notice them. We could tapping, hold our own hands. We could simply sit and notice. If it's not too intense, see if you could just stay with it. What else is here? What is the evidence that is causing this sensation, causing this anxiety about what I'm doing? Notice your breath. Keep working with your breath so you're not holding your breath. And look at each one of those images that might come up. And when that starts to feel that it has a little less intensity, and you can stay with it if you've got stuff that's coming up right now. If you're ready to move on to the next step, bring the next step to mind. I'm at the door, I'm about to open the door, I'm listening to the sounds of people inside. Take a few long breaths, long exhales, and visualize yourself looking in. You're opening the door, you're walking in. What happens then? What's coming to mind as you're walking in? And what does it feel like in your body? Maybe you're walking over to the table. You're looking at people who are looking up at you. Some of them probably are very welcoming, and others might be, maybe they're in a freeze response of their own. Maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they don't like you. And let's pause here again for a few minutes and work with these images. There might be thoughts. There might be something that you're projecting or predicting will happen. That person, when they get drunk, they always start to be kind of edgy and mean. I'm going to try and sit on the other end of the table so I don't have to be their target. These aren't made up anxieties. Social anxiety is based on our experiences in the past of being rejected, of not being included. So we could also offer ourselves some kindness, patience. What is the evidence? Let's continue to look at that. Continue to be in connection with the sensations and energy in your body. Once you've been working with an image for a bit or a belief, come back into the energy. What else would you like me to know? What else is causing this anxiety? And as we're doing this, we could notice what brings us into more regulation. It might be as simple as noticing our feet in our seat. Some of these worries and concerns, we can bring our adult self into the picture. If you have images of childhood or younger self worries and anxieties, we're in a different situation now. We could look at, is my response reasonable as an adult, or am I responding from my younger self? And if we're responding from our younger self, we might offer them some compassion, some kindness. We might sit with them for a bit. What would you like me to know? We might talk with them and reassure them. I'm sad how scary that was for you when you were younger. You're not on your own anymore. I'm here. My car is just outside. If things start to go sideways, we're going to leave. I'll just say, you know what? I got a headache. I'm tired. I got work early tomorrow. Got to go. And that's fine. We have more options. We're not trapped. Take a few deeper breaths. Whatever it is that's coming up for you, not to judge it, to be aware of it, to offer ourselves some kindness, some connection. And then for a moment, before we finish the inquiry, let's visualize something positive. So, because we have a negativity bias in the brain, it only really warns us about things that might be difficult or alarming or not safe. But what about all the times we've gone into a situation, we've seen a friend and they smile at us, they're happy to see us. We're happy to see them. Feel that in your body right now. If this is a situation where you have to say something that's difficult, see yourself standing tall, breathing, confidently saying the words. Notice how that feels. Sometimes we dread these things that are difficult, and when they're actually done, there's such a relief. Notice if there's any inner critic going on. If there is, ask it to back off. Let's take another moment to really feel in our body that we're safe enough in this situation. We're not trapped. We might say something, we might rehearse standing up to somebody, or there might not be anybody to stand up to. It might just be that we feel awkward, and we could work with easing that in our own body, letting the energy of that dissipate. Notice the space all around the energy in your body. Look around for cues of safety. And then as you come out of the inquiry, notice your breath, your body. Notice the energy in your body as well. What's happening in there now? And if you want, you could stand up and do some shaking for a moment. You could take some deep breaths, long exhales. There are a lot of ways that we can inquire into this, build resilience, and notice that we're not trapped. We have a lot of agency now that we didn't have in the past, and we can work with that.